In this video, I'm going to be converting three $50 Ikea bookcase units into a single built-in unit with face frame and crown molding. Some of the work is done at my shop, and some of the work is done at the customer's house. Hope you enjoy the video. So here's all the wood I used. I got a piece of 1x6 that I'm going to rip into two pieces that are 2.5 inches wide. I've got a piece that's going to be the top that's going to stay at 3.5. I've got one that's going to be ripped down to 3 inches. And I've got one that's going to be ripped down into 2 inch and 3/4 pieces. And then I got a piece that's crown molding. So I'm going to do some work on the table saw, put a coat of primer on this, and then install it at the customer's house. This is a Edge Tech, which is really just an edge sander. This edge, there's a slight bevel, it's a 2-degree bevel. Put it in the table saw, and you tilt it back 2 degrees to where this is perpendicular to the table saw fence. And then when you run the board through here, it just kisses this edge here. And so it has like an entry angle and an exit angle, and only exactly, like say a 32nd of an inch is touching the board, and you get like a perfectly sanded edge on the board. Much better than hand sanding or using a random orbit sander. It's always nice when you drop the wrench in there. The width of these is not a critical dimension, so if they end up being 1 7/16 inches, that's why I said they're supposed to be 1.5 inches, but if it's a little bit less, it doesn't really matter. I'll do one side of my 1.5 inch stock on both pieces, and then I'll come back and knock it over about 32nd inch and do the other side. Here's the sanded side, and here's the unsanded side. Even with this expensive Forest Woodworker 2 blade, you still get a little bit of blade marks here, but this sanding disc will take those right out. I'm gonna use this really small round over bit to just ease the edge of the stiles. I'm going to use a small round over bit to ease the edge of the stiles. And then I'll do some sanding, put a coat of primer on there, and then we'll be done for the shop work. So now I'm at the customer's house. It's awkward enough just filming, so I didn't do any talking to the camera. So I can use the cabinets as a reference the rest of the way. I'm checking to make sure the cabinets are plumb. I'm putting some tape on the clamps to protect the surface, and then now I'm clamping the 2 different shelf units together. These shelf units are purchased from Ikea as 3 separate units, so I'm going to screw them together to make them one. This 5-script clamp is pretty handy for this application. I've got my chop saw set up outside the customer's house, and I'm cutting the upper rail to length. I never trust factory edges, so I make a small cut off one end and then I cut it to length. Here I'm using a couple of clamps and blocks to help me hold the top rail up. Now I'm marking on the top rail where I'm going to cut some biscuit slots. The biscuit slots will be used to assist in aligning the rails and the stiles. Here I'm measuring the length of the 4 stiles. And now I'm cutting them all to length. Just a little bit of touch-up sanding before I add a little bit of glue, put a biscuit in, and then attach the stile to the rail. The biscuit ensures that even though these are pretty cheap Ikea shelves, this face frame will remain flush. I'm using a combination square to measure how far the stile sticks back from the shelving unit, and without moving the square, I'll make sure it's sticking out the same amount at the bottom. This pass-filled nailer works great until it doesn't. Luckily on this project, I didn't have any problems with it. I'm putting a board on the shelving units that are overhanging the top. I'm going to miter this top cap as it wraps around the side and the front, and I need some way to measure how long this side cap would be. The top cap goes into the shelves 1 7/8 inches. So I'll mark where 1 7/8 inches crosses the line I made with the speed square. And then I can measure from this point to the wall, and I can get the inside corner of my mitered piece. I got lucky, and it fits how I wanted it to. I installed both sides of the top cap, and now I am measuring from end to end to see how long the front cap should be. There just so happens to be the right length on top of this cabinet, so I just used that one. I'm using my trusty vice grip clamps to make sure everything stays flush. The board for the front top cap had a bow in it, so I had to take that out. Now I'm going to install the crown molding that goes at the top. I set my saw to a 45-degree angle, and I cut the trim in what's called the nested position, where the saw fence acts as the vertical part of the cabinet and the table acts as the horizontal part. This is a test fit to make sure everything fits good. And here my luck ran out, as that I need one more piece of trim to go on the top, and the piece I bought was 1 inch shorter than what I needed. Before I run to the store, I'm going to apply some spackling to the nail holes. I like this dry X spackling. It goes on pink, and as it dries, it turns white. Alright, so an hour later, and I'm back here with a piece that's actually long enough. I mitered one end, and then I'm just carefully holding this and moving my hands across as I go across this shelving, so then I can mark the other end, instead of using a tape measure. Here's a clamp and a block that I'm using to hold the trim as I nail the other end. I'm using a miter spring clamp to make sure the trim stays good and tight, but you could definitely get the job done without them. However, they sure make things easier. Some final sanding of the spackling. On this project, I was responsible for priming and doing paint prep, but the customer is going to do the final painting. Last thing for prep work is to caulk the trim. Nothing beats a finger for smoothing out caulk. Here's the 3 Ikea shelves, what they look like coming from the factory. And here's the final product with the face frame, cap, and trim installed. I think it'd be pretty hard for somebody to identify these as Ikea shelving. And this is the 4th set of shelving that I've done for this customer. These right here were done at least 4 years ago, and they have held up really well. And you can definitely tell the customer loves books. She has lots of books. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Take care. God bless. Please subscribe. Have a great day.